Today I'll be speaking about a funny character named Silvio Crazy Sal Salome. Sal was a Brooklyn guy that started out working as an electrician. In fact, it was a result of his job that gave him his entrance into the Colombo family. Sometime in late 1988 or early 89, Sal was given some side work from the father of Joey Amato. At the time, Joey was an up-and-coming Colombo member and part of Fat Patty Amato's crew, a captain with the family with no relation to him. When Sal went to the house to work, Joey was there and struck up a conversation with him. Anyone who knew Sal just needed a 2-minute conversation to fully understand why they nicknamed the Crazy Sal. Joey had a crew of guys around him, but was always on the lookout for new associates. So on that day, he offered Sal a job. At the time, the Colombo family had on record with them a trucking and shipping company named P. Cemento. He explained to Sal that all he had to do was watch over things. There were two unions at odds with one another, and someone was needed to keep things calm. In essence, Sal became the eyes and ears for the Colombos. Sal told me about his time employed at Cemento. He said, "We had a lot of laughs there. I was robbing everything and got caught one time. I'd take boxes and I put them out by the fence and then come back at night and pull them under the fence. They called me in an office and asked me if I was stealing. I said, 'Who, me? I didn't steal not one thing.' They played a video and you see me pulling the fence up and loading boxes into my car. Caught a crack in the head that day." So while Sal was at his new job at Cemento, he also became an associate with the Colombo family and put on record with Joey Amato. But Sal's time as an associate was short-lived. In the early 90s, Sal was arrested for criminal sale of cocaine, which was a Class A felony. At his trial, Frank Ganji and his girl, Judith Hamowitz, testified against him. Ganji was a former member of Tommy Patera's crew. Ultimately, Sal was convicted, and he received a 15 to life sentence. I believe the first time I met Sal was in 1991. They shipped him to Clinton Correction Facility in Dannemora, New York. Not long ago, the prison gained some attention when 2 inmates escaped in June of 2015. I remember seeing Sal in the yard on his first day. He looked disheveled, his eyes were wide, and he was looking all over the place. Understandably, a maximum security prison can be intimidating on your first day. And while getting to know Sal, I realized that no matter what advice we all gave him, he just marched to the beat of his own drum. For example, as an inmate, casually speaking with the guards was a no-no. Yet, every time I turned around, there was Sal standing around conversing with the guards. And no matter how many times I told him not to do it, he continued to do so. My cell was located on the flats, which was the ground level. Sal was a porter, so while most of us was locked in, he was out cleaning. And I heard him ask an extremely unfriendly woman guard, "Does your crotch stink?" I couldn't believe my ears. I jumped out of my bunk. I figured at any minute they were going to beat his brains in. The woman guard stormed over to Sal and said, "What did you just ask me?" He nonchalantly told her, "I said, can you open the slop sink?" Amazingly, she believed him and opened it up for him. A few minutes later, he came over to my cell. He said, "You see, John, I made you laugh." At the time, there were several guys named John in our block, so everyone started calling me John. On another occasion, we were in the gym, and there also was a woman guard there who was bottom heavy. So one day we were all watching TV and Sal stuck 2 volleyballs down his pants. If you looked at him from the front, you couldn't notice, but from the back, he sort of looked like the woman guard. So he walks in front of the TV and we're all hysterical laughing. So the woman guard walks over and said, "What's so funny?" And when she finally realized we were laughing whenever Sal moved, whenever he moved his hips from side to side, the volleyballs resembled the way she walked. So she approached Sal. "What do you have behind your back, Salome?" And again, he manages to talk himself out of it. In prison, if you play an instrument, depending on what it is, you could get it sent in. So Sal had his wife send him up an electric keyboard, and surprisingly, he played it well. One night, he was playing the keyboard, and it was close to lights out, which is about 10 p.m. So I kept egging him on to play different songs, and at the same time telling him to make it louder. And he's playing this keyboard, and he keeps making it louder and louder. So the night shift guard follows all the noise, goes over to Sal's cell and starts yelling at him, and confiscates the keyboard. After a while, he called down to me, John, you knew that was going to happen. That's why you kept telling me to make it louder." I said, "What's this guy, deaf?" And we all started laughing. In order to deal with the time, Sal decided to make his time go by creating laughter. While I was in the yard one afternoon, Sal walked over to me and asked me a question, and I answered him. But he kept saying that he couldn't hear me and asked me to repeat it. So I repeated it. Finally, I said to him, "What's the matter? You can't hear me?" But he told me to speak louder. Then he thrust his chest out, and I noticed he had a wire sticking out of his shirt. I froze for a second, and he was hysterical laughing. telling me, I got you. I said, what's the matter with you? You can't do things like this. Do you realize where you are? But nothing fazed Sal. He continued to laugh and said, you should have seen your face. You thought I was wired. A few of us worked as porters in the visitor room. When the visits were over, they would bring us in and we would clean everything up. And Sal came to work on our crew. Occasionally, we would find change, and when the guard wasn't looking, we'd go to the vending machine and buy ice cream or soda. Sal came up with the idea to have his father leave money under the microwave while he was visiting him. On the day he had his visit from his father, when the visits were over, our crew went to work, and I checked under the microwave and found a pile of money. I went over to Sal and told him to tell his father not to leave that much money anymore. It was too risky. In his usual crazy way, he looked at me and said, I can't tell him not to do it. You don't understand. My father thinks by leaving the money, he's part of organized crime. I just shook my head and walked away. One of the things Sal was adamant about was winning his appeal. We all had hope, but for Sal, there was no doubt in his mind he was going home on an appeal. I would try to get it through to his head that the reality was he had 15 to life. But every time we had this conversation, he would give me the same response. You'll see, I'll be getting released on my appeal. Apparently, when Frank Ganji and Judith Hamowitz testified against him, Ganji denied being part of the Tommy Patera crew. However, when Ganji testified at Patera's trial, his testimony was the complete opposite. He not only admitted to being part of Patera's crew, but to multiple murders he committed with Patera or witnessed Patera commit. And sure enough, in late 1992 or early 93, Sal won the appeal and his case was reversed. He was going to be released in a matter of days. The night before his release, I took him for a walk. I knew I would be insulting him, but it was for his own good. I told him, Sal, you're very fortunate to be getting a second chance, but I'm going to give you my honest advice. Go home, buy the best lunchbox you could find, and go to work. You know this is not for you. He answered me, I'm going to work, I'm done with the street. And then he asked if I felt bad he was leaving. I said, no, I'm happy for you. There's only one thing I'm upset about, is they should be giving me the credit for the past 2 years because I did them for you. He laughed and said, that's why I love you, John. As I expected, Sal hit the Brooklyn streets running. In no time, his marriage was over because he met a much younger girl. One day he introduced her to my mother. She commented how young she was. In his typical crazy way, he tells my mother, when I met her, she was wearing Wonder Woman underwear. Obviously, he was kidding, but that was just Sal. At the time of Sal's release, the Colombo family was at the tail end of an eternal war. Most of its members were indicted on racketeering cases, including Joey Amato, who by that time was a captain in the family. With Joey Amato in prison, Sal was put with Bill Cotolo's crew. He eventually opened up a store on 13th Avenue in Brooklyn and had Joker poker machines and was running a loan sharking operation out of it. He even moved out of Brooklyn and bought a house on Staten Island. Things were going well for Sal. He was making money, and we had heard rumors that the Colombo family inducted him. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse for Bill Cotolo. The Colombos feared that the well-respected Cotolo would take control of the family, so they turned on him. On May 26, 1999, the Colombos set Cotolo up and killed him. 2 years later, in 2001, the Eastern District of New York indicted members of the Colombo family, including Sal, on a racketeering case. Sal was released on bail with an ankle monitor. He subsequently entered a guilty plea and was awaiting sentencing. In June of 2002, the Brooklyn DA's office indicted and arrested 11 people. One of them was Sal. The charges were for loan sharking and money laundering. They dubbed the case Operation Broken Bracelet in regard to Sal's ankle monitor. According to reports, Sal had about $200,000 in the street. I personally know it was a lot more. In order to launder the money, he would purchase memorabilia from a Brooklyn sports store called Gamers Illusions. When he was arrested, Sal was in possession of such items like Babe Ruth's baseball glove, Muhammad Ali's boxing gloves, Mickey Mantle's baseball bat, a signed basketball by Michael Jordan, among other collectibles. Charles Hines, the Brooklyn DA, gave a statement after the arrest. The guy who was in charge, Silvio Salome of Staten Island, is a soldier in the Colombo family and was on bail awaiting sentence for, guess what, federal loan sharking. When he was running this operation, he was wearing a bracelet to make sure his movements were monitored. Initially, after his arrest, Sal was placed in MDC in Brooklyn. At the time, I was in Fishkill, and I heard about everything that was happening. One day, my mother went to a bookstore to buy me a book, and she decided to pick one up for Sal too. She went to UPS and sent both books out. I received my book, but when she mailed Sal his at MDC, the book was sent back to her. When my mother told me what happened, I knew. Sal didn't take my advice. He knew he couldn't handle doing time. In an effort to avoid prison, Sal became a witness for the government and helped secure the convictions of Allie-Boy Persico and Jackie DeRoss. He testified to a meeting he had with DeRoss after Cotolo went missing. DeRoss told him whatever he had going on with Bill would now be going to him. Sal, most likely playing dumb, asked, what if Cotolo showed up and questioned him about the money? But DeRoss reassured him, don't worry. Me and a couple of friends of mine made sure he won't be coming around. It's not the first time we took somebody for a walk in the park, meaning that they killed him. That trial ended in a conviction. Consequently, Sal was placed in the witness protection program. I don't know whatever happened to him. Someone messaged me years ago saying he took his own life, but I haven't been able to confirm that, and I hope it's not true. I'll end this with the last time I seen Sal. He came up to visit me at Fishkill. I believe he was straightened out by this time. So I said to him, Sal, go get a job and forget about being in the street. But my advice again fell on deaf ears. He turned to me and said, you got to see the boat I just bought.